this is monumental news, so we certainly had to pivot. Bjergsen has retired from active competition. He will now assume a coaching role with TSM. Before we get to the implications of TSM's roster and also what this means for free agency, because this absolutely does shake things up, Tyler, I would like to address Bjergsen as a coach. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how well Bjergsen will fit into that role. How good of a coach do you think he'll be?
It's so tough to say, right? It's so tough to say. It's very similar to traditional sports, right? Where you have a genius like Larry Bird going to coaching, he does well. You have someone like Magic Johnson, a fellow genius, a top 5 NBA player of all time. Terrible upper management person for the Lakers. He literally quit on his job randomly one day because he couldn't keep up with what was going on. Like, you can never really, you can't go, oh, he was an amazing player, so he's an amazing front office person, or he was an amazing player, so he's an amazing coach. I think he is intelligent enough. I think he's even keel enough. He has a lot of experience. I think he's someone who can relate to the players. I think he's gone through a lot in his life, being that 17-year-old lanky kid, anxiety-ridden, coming over from Denmark into a whole new world in Los Angeles, California, and kind of building his life here and overcoming and becoming a man here. I think he will be really able to sympathize and relate to the players, especially hopefully the young North American players coming up in the field. And I think another bonus that he has is that he's going to garner respect, Arda. And one of the biggest issues that I've heard in and out of North American coaching when it comes to League of Legends is that players don't respect their coaches all the time. That it's hard for a coach to gain the respect of their players when it comes to knowledge and when it comes to making calls and decision making and telling them what to do. Everyone's going to respect Bjergsen as a coach. He will show them his multitude of MVPs and trophies and say, "Sit down. He next mid laner of TSM. Next time those two have an argument, Bjergsen is just going to be like, I could take your job if I want to. Whoever you are, I will sit down right here and I will 1v1 you for your job." So I think he'll do well. It's very hard to say because you can never translate one to the other, but I think he's going to garner a lot of respect, and that's the first step into becoming a great coach, is for people to respect you.
Yeah.
And almost no player in the Western scene has as much respect as Bjergsen.
Yeah, he's one of the most respected League of Legends players anywhere, in any region. So that is absolutely there. There is no doubt about that. And this comes with interesting timing, Tyler, because one of the things that we were speaking about on this program when TSM got eliminated, we weren't necessarily calling for the resignation of the coaching staff or anything like that, but we were questioning whether that might be a category that could change next season. Not predicting that it would happen, but certainly for many fans out there, that is one area that they were looking at and saying, maybe this will look different next season. And now that's exactly the case. So from the lens of, before we move on to free agency and TSM's roster, from that lens, the fact that now the roster, the coaching staff has changed and Bjergsen has come in, and now there will be changes there. Who knows what happens with the personnel there now that Bjergsen has been added? We haven't officially heard this. What do you think happens with the rest of the coaching staff?
Parth and Bjergsen have always had a close relationship. I think Parth coming back as a head coach was more of a request from Bjergsen and Doublelift than more than anything else. I think him coming back into that coaching role was Bjergsen and Doublelift wanting them as his coach, going back to that 2016, 2017 heyday where they were at their peak of reputation and skill level. So I can very well see, Parth, going back into that GM role, leaving, Bjergsen as, the head coach. I think it'll be fine. I think he again, respected by everyone in the TSM organization. And I think Parth is someone who's shown to be flexible and very, very well adept at numerous roles in the organization of TSM. So I think overall, I think the coaching staff is going to shift, but I think they'll find the right places for all the people currently on staff. I don't think anyone's losing their job over this. I just think there'll be a reshuffling, and I think that's the best thing for this new generation of TSM.
More reactions from Twitter are pouring in. Cloud9 responded to the tweet with "one last ride. Can't Killian the Zillion." And you're seeing the video right now, by the way. This was posted by TSM. and Bjergsen tweeted it out only minutes ago. So this is very fresh news. Kobe says Bjergsen retiring is such a big hit to NA, one of our strongest mid laners, gone from competition and pushing the next generation. I have to say, though, I think he will make one amazing coach. Trust, experience, game knowledge, leadership, understanding player view. And so, as we mentioned, this is going to be a massive talking point for many, many, many days to come. And actually, one of our colleagues, Emily Rand, just tweeted. Let's read her tweet as well. I knew it was coming when it came, but the saddest retirement for me was KT Score. He was always there from the moment I got into watching LOL Esports at all, and had always been there as a constant. I imagine many NA fans will feel similarly about Bjergsen's retirement today. Yes, a very monumental moment in LCS and history. And also, it shakes up free agency in a massive way, because Tyler, there are some spicy mid laners out there that we have had our eye on and where they may or may not go. And now
Jensen. Jensen, is Jensen the answer now? Is it gonna be like, who knows?
What about Jensen? What about Chovy? What about other names? I'm just throwing them out there. Now I'm doing a little clickbait. Okay, I'll be honest. Now I'm throwing just a touch, just a little touch of clickbait.
It's not clickbait anymore. These are free agents. Chovy's being talked about.
I know. We talked about him likely staying in the LPL. I mean, they could talk. We don't know.
That's changed from things I've heard. It's not 100. My point of view of him 100% going to the LPL or LCK, that's changed a bit. I feel like NA is an option now. I feel like NA could be an option.
Okay, so let's broaden that conversation now. Bjergsen retires. TSM needs a mid laner. Okay, let's start there, and then let's talk about the rest of the roster. Who do you think the likely candidates could be that TSM, even if they haven't started talking to these players yet? I'm asking your opinion here, Tyler. I'm saying, okay, let's look at the landscape. Who, if you were in that TSM war room, who would you target? Who would be a great fit for TSM to succeed Bjergsen in that role? And what do you think TSM will do in order to get it done? Do you think they will look at an established star, or do you think they'll look for a youth movement?
There's two ways to go about this. If you're playing for unlimited money, if you want to go for the home run, if you want to go for the big bang, you go for a Chovy, you go for a Jensen. You look and you talk to Carlos to see what the perks cap situation might unfold to be. If one of those players wants to be, if they both want to be mid laners, maybe bring them over to TSM. But TSM has not always been the heavy spending org. They've been pretty tight when it comes to making all these splashy moves. They can often be outbid by some other orgs. They have the money if they want to, and they might want to because you are TSM, you are team solo mid. Mid lane has always been that position for you. You've only had 2 starter mid laners in your entire legacy with Reginald and Bjergsen, 2 Hall of Famers. You can talk about Reggie all you want in terms of his career, but he's a Hall of Famer, if not just for his career, but for what he has done for the entirety of his, going from rags to riches, making becoming a millionaire through his own devices, and really being creating the biggest brand in North American esports. Reggie, Bjergsen, Jensen or a Chovy or a Perks or a Caps, that legacy continues on, and you have the TSM legacy, and it continues on being that high level TSM mid laner, you player in the mid. Or do you go for a young player? Do you have an Evolved or a Palafox or another a Saligo? Do you go for the youth movement? Do you go for a younger player either in North America or the European regional leagues that Bjergsen liked from Denmark or Sweden or something like that? And it's a very difficult decision, right? Where both options have their pros and cons. For me, though, TSM either has to go for the youth movement or they have to go for a home run. There's no doubles here. Do not go for a double. I love Jizuke. I think Jizuke is a good player, but don't go TSM Jizuke. You need a player that you can they have to be a focus for the next 2 to 5 years. This is a player that you have to believe in for the next 2 to 5 years, because I feel like the legacy of TSM mid lane is very important. It is important to uphold that legacy of that position on TSM, where it goes Reggie, Bjergsen, the next great star. And it could be an established player like Jensen or Chovy or whoever, or it could be a young player like Evolve who you truly believe in, or in a Blaze Olive in your organization who many people say is a player who is capable of going up to that next level. So for me, I want to see them not go for a double. Go for either believing in the future and go for a very young,
there's really two ways to go, right? Like, you're right. This might be a good opportunity to start a youth movement too.
Yeah.
The only sticking point to that is, if I'm reading Doublelift's tweet correctly, it sounds like he contemplated retirement, but it doesn't sound like he will retire. So if he were to part ways with TSM, that would either have to be a mutual thing, or TSM would have to just say, we're just going to clean slate and we're going to let Doublelift go. I honestly don't necessarily see that happening. It could happen, but I don't know.
Losing both faces? That's hard. Losing both faces of the franchise.
Losing both of them? Yeah. But then again, if there was ever a time,
if there was ever a time,
youth movement, now's the time. Clean slate, get the academy players, young players in there, adopt the Cloud9 model. You know, like, this might be the time to do that for TSM. Do you rebuild for a little while? Sure, but if there's ever a brand that is in that tier that could withstand that kind of rebuild and could stand to lose a couple of splits in order to get better, it's TSM.